Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Here we are at the Ripsken Podcast show. Certainly two amazing men sitting here on my left is Don Helfert. He's one of the pioneers of the Midwest Pickleball Club. He's also an intermediate level player. He loves the game. He's an ambassador to the USAPA. We're really happy to have you, Don. Sitting to my right is Dave, the producer of this podcast. He's not really an intermediate level pickleball player yet, but hopefully with a little bit of Ripsken love, you'll get out of that beginning phase.
That's the hope. Yeah.
Into the intermediate
That's what we want
phase.
to get.
So what the heck should we be talking about today, guys?
Well, some of the things I'm interested in talking about, Rick, I've seen a lot of references to referees lately and line calls and maybe technology and where that's going. So I'd love to get your take on that and some of the insides. And I'd love to talk about the tours and what's going on with the APP and the PPA. Also, Major League Pickleball and National Pickleball League and what's happening with those more team-focused sport side of the sport, and really anything we want to talk about today, pickleball. So let's talk about line calls and referees. What are you hearing in the professional world about this and the challenges?
Referees have a tough job. It's clearly there's some subjective scenarios. There was a pretty well-referenced split step that was very pronounced to almost the point where it was deemed an agitation to the opponents, and it was called as a violation on James Ignatowicz, which I like James, and I really like his girlfriend, Anna Bright. She's awesome. I was supposed to play in the U.S. Open with her until she wasn't able to play. But regardless, that was a big deal there at the PPA championships. Actually, it was MLP. But, the refereeing is kind of, I see it in two different lenses. I have a nephew who's a world-class professional tennis player, and I've been to the Australian Open and the Delray Open in the last month. I've seen him play, and there I'm like watching this high-level tennis go off with their the Cyclops. I forget what they call the tennis line calling system that's automated, but the Hawkeye perhaps.
Hawkeye, I'm not sure.
But regardless, it would be kind of neat to not have any errors on the perspective of line calls during matches for pro champions level players like myself or pro open players when there's money and sponsors and whatnot on the line. But at the same time, I really like the refs. I know almost all the refs. And in fact, I've just been chatting with two great referee ambassadors, Michelle and Mike Baumgartner, who are spearheading our referee alignment for the NPL, the Champions Level Pro. So it's a tough job. I think there's, like anything, there's a couple referees that really don't have any business being a referee, but 98% of them are really good, try to do a great job. And I would like that to not be an automated thing where they just are out of a job because they've trained for that. They don't make a ton of money, but their rates have gone up. And it's really a curious dynamic when you talk to two different pros, how they feel about refs. Have you guys watched any professional pickleball? What are your?
Well, I was going to ask you, is there a hybrid role, or is there a hybrid place where you have a referee, but you have the technology? I'm a baseball fan, and there's, that's one of the things they're talking about, the robo-umps that can call, and you can watch on TV and you can see certain things, but the whole game of baseball for hundreds of years has been the referee makes a final, or the umpire makes a final call. Is there a place for that in professional pickleball?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You can't really not have referees. For instance, even when you bring your paddle to the court, they feel the surface, and that's been a hot topic too, right? The paddles and whether they're being doctored up a bit or not. I can tell you I have zero grit on mine and have never had an issue. I've heard of players putting hairspray on their paddle to create some extra stick effect. And certainly have heard that maybe some of the companies that sponsor these players have a special administered grit that might be outside the lines of what the specs by USAPA are. So I hope that's not happening, but I think it is happening based on my discussions with some of the pros. So it'd be nice to have a referee that's live, at least see that situation and apply, obviously, behavioral issues as well. So a hybrid's a good word for it, and I think, to me, that's probably what would be the win-win, is having the lines called by the electronic systems and having referees use their subjectivity on behavior and equipment and time of timeouts and injuries and things like that.
Well, and I think that's the interesting part about pickleball, though, because it was kind of started to take away some of the unfair advantage that certain players would have. So it was almost like a leveling of the field for the game. And yet, as it's gotten more competitive and it's gotten into serious competition, it's interesting to see where the rules are, and and so that's the other question: is how does that take it out of the tournament play? How does that then, because the rec play is just as competitive in a lot of cases. I mean, guys arguing back and forth as to what level I am. Should I be in this place and that? How does that officiating then? How do you take that down into that next level?
Well, I don't know if Don has been exposed to any of these wonderful combative rec play games at the intermediate level, but I actually have people renting my facility and I see these scenarios, and they're few and far between. Usually the love in pickleball is so immense that it's almost Valentine's Day every day. But at times you can hear that somebody's, and it's ironic because the one I love, which I think the opponents don't love, is when somebody sees their opponent serving a certain way, and only when they start losing 7 or 8-0 do they bring to the attention, oh, that's an illegal serve. You're meeting that above your waist. Like, wait a minute. You didn't say anything for the first 10 serves, and now that you're losing, it's like, okay.
I never call that when I'm winning.
Yeah. Exactly. And it's like, if you really think about it logically, which obviously players who compete sometimes don't think logically, but you want that player to make their serve every time so you can have rallies and improve and rec play. I mean, why would you want to call somebody out on that? Then all of a sudden they get the service yips, and now there's no value to your practice session. So, it's an interesting dynamic on rec play versus pros. Yeah. Rec play is not going to get to the point where they're paying referees to come in. I can tell you that even with MPL, in a month we're going to Oklahoma City, and we're going to have, we're sold out. We have 40 men and 40 women, men from Australia and Singapore coming. And we debated paying refs for every court, which we're not going to do, but we're going more to the tennis model of junior tennis, where we're going to have a few roving refs. So hopefully these matches are self-refed, officiated properly, and then if there becomes a hairy scenario, then a ref can be called to the court to issue a judgment and even stay on that court if there seems to be some problematic line calling or whatnot. Because obviously, these people that come to the combine, they're not just showing their ability. Their results will matter, and the results will be dictated to the owners that may or may not draft them. So brings me back to like my professional tennis days when you start out playing satellites. Literally, we were playing for prize money, not much, $50, $100, but then also ATP points. And I think there were no refs. And you have some players, most players I played actually were from other countries. And this was the only way they were going to escape their country and get to America, is if they got to the top 100. So they were literally robbing players blind because it was their only way of life. So that's really uncomfortable when you start getting to the higher level pro and no officiating.
You see it at every level, whether it's youth sports all the way up to what we saw in the Super Bowl, what they're still in some cities talking about, and it would be natural that it's in pickleball as well.
Well, as the money grows in the sport too, it's become a big thing. A lot of people are coming in now. I'm starting to hear the word, the integrity of the sport, and just about every time I hear that, it means somebody with a lot of money is doing something different than we've done before, or I want you to do. But I hate to say this, but there's always one person. 99 out of 100 people can be fair and do their best to make a line call. You're going to miss some. You get most of them right. But when there's a lot of money on the line, there's going to be someone who's good. Let's say it, they're going to cheat. So I'm curious to see how that works out with the roving referee. My bet is that especially as tournament money, as money grows on the NPL or the league and the MLP, you're going to need referees watching every line and whatever the pickleball version of Hawkeye is, and it's just going to come to that, right? And slow motion challenges.
It's a tech opportunity for somebody out there that wants to come up with some way of figuring out how to create that low-cost Hawkeye system you can drop in anywhere.
Yeah, last year, referencing 27 weekends I went and played professional pickleball for money, for sponsors, for rankings. I can tell you the time that I was the most frustrated, and it happened maybe more than once, was when I feel like I was violently being cheated to the point where it was really hard to tap paddles at the end of the match. I did, but it was reluctant, trust me. And one time I just walked off the court. So I don't ever want to do that. That's not my nature, but it happens. And I do think multiple referees or Hawkeye system could really help. And I think also when you talk about the champions level players who are 15 over, we all know our vision slowly declines with time. So what they thought might have been 20/20 vision when they're 20 years old, it's not 20/20 vision anymore. Do you wear glasses?
I do. These are readers, but you're right though, especially depending upon the court and rec play. Maybe the lines are gray or yellow or blue, and maybe the ball's a little different color, and it's going fast, and you're trying to hit it. I mean, like I said, most people I think are doing their best and trying to play fair, and that's why the rule, if you can't tell, the ball is in. But I'd rather have a referee standing there going, "No, you're being a gentleman about it, but you're wrong. The ball was out." Oh, great! So it's going to be more fair in the long term. So
well, let's play a little game called Show and Tell, shall we? Okay, so just sit right there, guys. I want to show you something. Okay, don't be nervous. I want to show you these shoes. Can you see these shoes? Ow! Oh, I'm cramping. No, I was just kidding. So those are neon yellow shoes, and if you didn't know, the neon yellow is now being outlawed. You cannot wear that playing pickleball. And, it's kind of interesting to me that it's coming to that. I have a ton of neon yellow shirts. I like neon yellow, not to camouflage the ball, but I just like bright colors. It kind of matches my personality when I'm winning. Now, when I'm losing, I change to a really dark and a gray shirt, because then I get really sad.
You need to wear the yellow so they can't see, and then
that's why they made a rule. I've played against people. I've literally played against the person whose entire outfit, and they had long, sweatpants on that matched the ball. And if the ball gets near their body, a lot of times you're hitting at or near someone's body, there's a split second where you lose it. And when you're standing 14 or 15 feet away from each other at the net, hand battling, I think it does I thought that was a good rule, even though it may make your feet less pretty in the future. I think it's a real good rule.
Well, it's interesting because there is a good friend of mine named John Sperling who loves neon yellow socks. And I think he's still allowed to wear those. And I think I'm probably
I don't think you should be. Yeah,
I'm allowed to wear these shoes, which, obviously there's half volleys, low volleys. So I understand it. I'm not mad at it. It's just like, darn it, I really like that color. But anyway, neon orange, neon lime green, it's probably where I'll go next. But boy, this sport's becoming irrelevant when you start telling them what they can or cannot wear.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah, well, like I said, the money is entering the system, and that's, in many ways, I feel like the professional players are a lot like the NFL players from the 50s. They're the best in the world, but the money is just not there behind it. And pickleball's about to have this, and I think it's in the midst of this exponential growth spurt. More and more people just seem to be trying to get in on the for-profit side and do something. So it's just going to, you're going to start to see people shake out who's going to be the best and who's going to have the best idea, like an NPL idea, and see where it goes. But more money's coming in.
Let's talk about the NPL. You mentioned that. So it's a good transition. Tell us about what's going on with the NPL. It sounds like some exciting stuff.
Yeah, it's really the love of team format is taking over. And it was kind of a necessity in some of our minds, us being the champions level pros, which are the 15 over, technically 49. In fact, I just practiced with a guy named DJ Howard. He's a pretty good 5-0 in Michigan. And, well, he's never going to medal in a PPA or APP Pro Open tournament. He'd be a very good senior pro. And he's only 2 years away because he's got the best birthday of all time, December. So he gets to play at 49 the whole year. Whereas I have the worst birthday of all time, January. So I had to sit out that 49 year, and that just was annoying. But anyway, the thing about NPL is that, it was created by the champions level players for the champions level players, and it is cultivating a team format, and it's being hosted by the Chicken and Pickle, which are state-of-the-art indoor, outdoor facilities around the country. And there's 6 event dates and starts in June. And at that one date in June is going to be all of the players from the 6 different teams. And each of those teams represent cities. We announced our first team 2 weeks ago, which is the Naples Pickleball Center. So they are the Naples JBB United, which is named after the forefathers of pickleball, and which is kind of cool. Most people don't know that. A second team in Florida is going to be announced on Friday. I have a news conference with the mayor and their team. I can't tell you where it is, but you'll hear on Friday where that's going to be next Friday. So when you talk about 6 owners that are super pumped to see the 15 over pros, men and women, you talk about anywhere from 12 to 20 players per team, which means 8 to 10-ish, 6 to 10-ish men and women. We are still tweaking our format just a very little bit, but it's doubles and then it's mixed doubles. And boy, oh boy, how much fun it is that we just announced that we're giving out $100,000 in prize money, which is on top of some of the premier players. The very top players are receiving entry fee comps and appearance fees. So this money is getting real. And quite frankly, last year, the money was getting real bad for senior pro champions level players. So the fact that we're paying out 200% of the entry fees we're bringing in makes me really happy. It tells the audience that people besides the players are funding this league. And it's been, honestly, it just gives me chills when the CNP said we would love to be the home of champion level league play. And that was really awesome to hear that. And then you hear these team owners that have the vision of we want to draft great senior pro champions level players, but also great people. And we don't really, we're not focused on the exact rate of return. We're focused on the lifelong relevance of this league and how it has legs for so many people. And we have people in the NPL that have Parkinson's disease. We have people that have some diabetics. We have a lot of different issues because we've all lived long enough to develop issues. Do you have any issues? No? Well, I do. So my issue is I didn't realize how amazing pickleball was. But luckily, I'm getting rid of that issue because I play it almost every day. But no, in all seriousness, the NPL has been so well received by so many of these top. We have all the top women, 10 of the top 10 in the women. I think in the men we have 7 of the top 10 men under contract, and it's just such a cool vibe to think about all of us in one place coming together, having a banquet night and sharing the love, but also networking. And one of the things that you guys probably didn't think about, and I didn't think about it until I started hearing from a few players, is that when you bring all the top players together in one setting, and they could possibly be on each other's team due to however the draft goes, they start literally thinking about how they might meet their future partner. Because if I had $1 for every player, champions level player and non-champions level player, if I just can't find the right partner. If I could find a partner, well, first of all, guys think they're better than they are. It's usually the guy that's telling me this doesn't realize that he's not any better than his partner. But regardless, still to have that navigation of partners that are all coming in one place from all over the country, actually even the world, because Australians want to join our league, that makes me happy. People can meet different partners to go play these national tournaments rather than just having to play with what they feel like is a subpar partner just to get in the draw. So I'm really stoked to introduce a number of people to each other to naturally help that. And so the Combine in Oklahoma City, we're going to do not just, pods and players advance and regress in different pods, but we're also going to do kind of a fun cornhole. If you've never been to Chicken and Pickle, they typically have cornhole set up, and they also have shuffleboard, which, shuffleboard isn't exactly what we want to do, calling us champions players. That's more senior players. We'll probably do that.
Yeah, you're way too young for
way
shuffleboard.
too young for shuffleboard.
You're never too young to get good at something.
Well, what about pickleball cornhole? That seems like that'd be pretty interesting to try.
That would be very interesting to try. I like that. Actually, I really like that.
Yeah,
I love the team concept of what you're talking about because of the fact, and the other part, having gotten to know a couple of you guys, the personalities that you're starting to see. And I think there's a fan element there that, if it's nurtured properly, could really turn into something neat. Talk a little bit about how the team concept works, and again, because you look around, if you look at other sports, it's the team element, I think, that creates the diehard people to fight, because you're part of us now.
Dave, I'm glad you asked about that, because we actually have 4 lines of doubles on the men's and women's side, which obviously means 8 players. Doubles team number 1, doubles team number 2, doubles team number 3, and 4. We're going to do 4 lines or 3 lines, but regardless, you're all on the same team, and then you play mixed doubles, and your number 1's playing, your number 2's playing, your number 3's play. So all vying for matches that all count the same. By the way, at the end of the day, this $100,000 of prize money is going to be split evenly amongst all the players on the team. It's not like the number one player is going to get 80% of the money and the rest are going to get peanuts. No, it's all split evenly. So to think about cities playing cities really pumps me up. In year one, we're playing at all the chicken and pickles, but in year two, we're going to expand into a minimum of 12 teams and maybe more. That's doubling the number of teams we have. And I'm 100% certain we're going to have Naples Pickleball Center will be the host of some home matches for their team. And then there will be away matches as well. And hopefully we'll still use the chicken and pickles as well because they're amazing venues. And obviously there's rainproof because it's indoors as well. So we're really excited to see it grow. I can tell you that we've talked to interested owners in almost all geographical locations of America. We've sold 4 teams to date, and we have 2 teams that will be sold, I can say that with confidence, before our draft, which is, I think, April 15th, maybe tax day, close to that. It's the Friday before the U.S. Open. We're going to actually have the live draft live streamed, and hopefully we all tune in so you can see who's being selected where.
You look at every different sport, even golf. The ultimate individual sport. But what's really revolutionized that? The Ryder Cup, where they go and take teams and go out and do those types of things. I can remember back in the day in the 70s with the tennis here in Indianapolis that we had the teams that you would follow. And it's just, so I think that's fantastic. That's really exciting.
I think it's cool. You were talking about premier players and how they were getting support from. I heard something about this, like people setting up Patreon and other. Do you guys have something through your website where people can financially support, say, the pro they want to? Because that's kind of what I saw was going on. It's almost like, hey, I like this pro. I want to financially support their career so I can, I don't know how it works, but what are you guys doing? Anything like that? Or is that something that, did I just make that up? Did I dream that?
Well, I think, did you say Patron?
Patreon.
No,
But all the Patron.
Patron wants to sponsor me because I seem like I'm drunk when I'm playing.
I mean, it's a Patreon. We don't judge what the pros do with their money. We just want to help them get more.
Well, the reality is the origin of sponsorships in that with the city that's evolving. So obviously we know Naples, and we'll know 3 cities in the next 3 weeks. We'll know those, but they're going to be responsible for getting sponsors at that local level. Okay. So whether it is Patron or it's any other companies to sponsor the team, that's essentially going to help the owners in the league. Now, absolutely, companies can sponsor individual players like these Acacia shoes. I'm sponsored by Acacia. I don't know if they're going to be the official shoe of our league or not. That's up to, it's up to me and a couple other managing partners of the league to decide what's the best fit for the official ball, the official shoe, and the events that we're sponsoring. And quite frankly, we're really looking forward to these owners that we've obviously already talked about and using their business acumen to come up with a really good model in that regard. So players can absolutely be sponsored by, and by the way, our league, NPL, we started it to not compete with the APP Tour or the PPA Tour. We went on dates that didn't have other tournaments. We've since had one or two of those tournaments be put on top of our date, which is okay. We've got our people locked in for the draft, and about 2/3 of them will be accepted, and 1/3 of them will be having to wait till next year and train harder. But we were happy to play in the sandbox quite nicely with APP and PPA, the individual tours, and every player that's in our league can play any other event they want outside of our dates. The only thing they can't do is if they're a premier player, they sign an exclusive contract where they can't play if another league evolved in 2023 for senior players, pro champions players, which it hasn't, and I doubt it will, because quite frankly, not to be too dramatic, but the champions players were kind of on the Titanic last year with prize money being pulled out and live streams being pulled, and we feel like we kind of lifted the aspect of reputation and quality for these deserving 15 over senior pros.
Yeah. Well, so you mentioned corporate sponsors. Here's an idea. What if you set up on your website a place where Dave could go and sponsor
GoFundMe type
you, or whoever the players are. I don't know the names very well, but let's pick a player, and I want to sponsor them because they're my favorite player. So I give $100 to that player, and maybe the NPL gets a piece of that too to help fund it. Because I know you guys, and most people don't realize this, but you guys aren't taking anything. You're putting your own money up for this just for the love of the sport. I realize long term it could grow into something great, but if it doesn't, you got a lot of risk involved. So maybe that's a great way to help support you all in this and grow it. Because I think the predominance of people watching pickleball right now are over 50, and so I want to see everybody play, but I like to see people my age play, and so I would support players that way. So just a thought.
Yeah, that's really creative, and I really like that. At the end of the day, the Champions level players do have great personalities. They lived fairly long life, and we like to put on a show too.
Yeah.
And not to take anything away from the open players, because I do give a lot of credit to MLP, which have really spruced up the personalities and the vibe and the music and the fanfare. I love what they're doing. I think we will equally be as impressive in our production, and I think that will lead interested viewership to a possible player that they could. If Rick Witskin as a player was up there, would you who's your favorite Champions player?
Well, I'm not going to say any names, but she's way hotter than you. So, no.
Ouch.
Another thing, like baseball cards.
Are you avoiding the question?
I don't know any of the names except Beth, so I don't want to say. I'm sorry.
Who's your favorite male Champions player?
Well, you are.
That's what I would need to hear. I'm feeling.
But you're rich. You don't need my money. So.
Okay, sure.
No, I would absolutely support you. I hope I am too. I think you're great for the sport. I love the sport. I just found out about it a year ago, and in the meantime, I've fallen in love with it. I have my 1 in 40 rule. You know how we talked about, you go there and most of the players are lovable. There's always 1 in 40. And I say that because there's like 40 people waiting to get on the court, and there's always that one person. But that means 39 out of 40 people are really great individuals who love the sport. I've never been involved. I've been in lots of sports, martial arts, baseball, football. I've never been in one where everybody's so cooperative and cooperative across levels. I think I'm a 3-0 player if I have a good day. And I can go out and play with some 5-0 players who are professional level who go, yeah, come out, and they'll hit around with me and help me get better. And I've just never encountered a sport like that before.
What's funny is you saying that 1 in 40, it's ringing a bell, because obviously I coach a lot of camps, and I just had one in Naples where we had 36 players. And invariably, there was that one player that was really not nice to her partner. And even though they were doing up and down the river and the team advanced, she told her partner, "Oh, you should stay back down there. You're not at this level." It's like they just won together, and they move up and split partners. And she's in front of me, the coach, telling that woman she needs to stay down. She doesn't deserve to advance. I'm like, are you kidding me? Did you just say that?
And forgot to take their Xanax today.
We do have issues.
Yeah. So I think 1 in 40 is, we had a camp in San Antonio last week, and people will be nice. But in general, I think people are really nice.
So good. Yeah.
I think the cool part, and of course I do it from the side. I've only played a couple times, so I'm definitely a beginner, but an awful lot of my friends are now, this is becoming their lifestyle. It's like, hey, what are you doing? Well, I'm getting to really play pickleball. And there's not a lot of stuff, when you get to be 59, 60 years old that you're doing. My days of running or jogging and those kind of things are probably past me, unless you're just a real stickler for it. But to get up and go take a paddle and go out and play and have some fun, come back, take a shower, go back the rest of your day. It's changing, I think, an entire way that people look at recreation, and I think that's really cool.
Well, you are right about that. Lifestyle change. Like I have a good buddy, his name is Kevin Ling, and Kevin, I'm not sure if I introduced him to the sport, but I was there at the beginning for him, right? And we played together, we partnered together a lot before he surpassed me about a month into it. The guy's just got, proper skills, and it meant so much to him that he and a couple of his buddies have formed a foundation, a tax-exempt 501c3 called the World Pickleball Foundation. And their whole thing is to get the sport out to kids, maybe kids who haven't had an opportunity to play the sport, and plant teams in schools, and then be like the Carnegie Library of pickleball and start planting pickleball facilities around the country. The idea being 50 tier 1 facilities around the country to give people to, places to have tournaments and leagues and grow the sport, which I think is a phenomenal idea. The way you started that team out at the school and had 48 kids playing, and all these 48 kids are showing up every week to play. I mean, there's a hunger for stuff like this. So it is life-changing. There's another fellow in Carmel, Indiana, Christian Poppy Lopez, and he owns a business called Physique 57, and he imports quinoa. Pretty interesting story. The guy's a 4 or 5 pickleball player, an old school tennis coach and player, and he's planted a team at I believe it's Carmel Clay Elementary. So there's a lot of people going out and going into schools and introducing this to kids. I think the sport needs that because one of the questions you hear all the time is pickleball a fad? And I go, well, it's 60 years old, so it's probably not a fad. But what if it's like one of those old basketball things back in the 80s where you show up and you play 3-on-3, but you never hear about it anymore, right? So there's a potential for that if we don't get this planted at the grassroots and with the kids. Because let's face it, Rick, you're probably not going to come watch me play on a Saturday or a Sunday a town away, but if it's your child, you're going to pack up everything in the car, you're going to get your cameras, and you're going to go watch them, right?
If I'm depressed and I want to feel better about myself, I might come watch you.
Just so you can feel better about your game?
Yeah, maybe. And about that Kevin Ling character you were talking about earlier, I really like Kevin, but isn't he the guy that I gave a free paddle to and then quickly showed me a little microscopic blemish?
A couple of times. He keeps hitting it on the ground so I think he's hitting the ball.
So is that my fault that I gave him the paddle because he wants to abuse it, or is that his fault?
I think he was just pointing out that he needs a new one.
Okay. That's so weird.
It's a little, it's kind of percolating through that.
But Kevin is a nice guy because I was painting courts, outdoor courts by myself with one other guy, Rich Benson, and then here comes Don. Here comes Kevin to help me get these pickleball courts painted, and you guys did a fantastic job. And I barely knew Kevin, so that's obviously the type of character that he is. I do want to say that there was an article that can pickleball save America, and without getting too,
I remember that. Yeah,
I love that article, and not getting too deep into politics. I do think not just America, but the world needs fresh air, positivity, and I do believe in it. And I was doing an interview with the pickleball clinic, and he asked me, what does pickleball mean to me? I'm like, well, pickleball saves lives. And I can be at the forefront of, nurturing these relationships, whether it's middle school kids who have been stuck in the quarantine and on their cell phones. I have a stepson that nothing but a gamer for a while, but he loves pickleball. And so forcing the social interaction, families of, grandparents playing with kids in the cul-de-sac, we've all heard these stories. Mm-hmm. I do think it's saving lives. And nobody wants to go to a gym and run on a treadmill every day, but they do want to play pickleball 2 or 3 times a day because they become addicted. And it is a really healthy addiction.
When you think about the different sports, it's also accessible to anybody. I mean, tennis, not so much. You got to go to a place. You got to have somebody that can play at your level to even have any kind of fun with it. Mm-hmm. But with pickleball, if you're a hacker and you've just started, you can still walk out there, have some fun with it, and any place you can kind of put a net mm-hmm. up. So it has an awful lot of great things, and it has that ability to learn. And if you're got some aptitude, you can move pretty quickly to a point where you're good enough to get out there and really have fun with it. And then you take it all the way up to the level you play it at. It's amazing to sit and watch the really, really good players and to watch some of the volleys and the things that go on. And it's mesmerizing to sit and watch it on, on the video and just be in awe of what's going on.
Yeah, and even if you don't, I have another great buddy, Brendan Preston. He plays. He's a beginner like you, but even though he doesn't play as much, he's really into the physical and the mental benefits of the sport. So I see this as a life-changing thing for us. I had no idea a couple of years ago when I retired that something like this would come along and be have the potential to save the world. I know it's kind of an inside joke, but the truth is you get a lot of people who are really nice to each other doing the same thing, and now they pass that on to the next generation. Don Nixon, who's another Carmelite who's down in Naples right now, he's pushing 80, and he's a bronze winner, I believe, at the U.S. Open. he's kind of like that generation before us who's passing things on to us too. So it's kind of cool to see how that's going. Look at the next generation, like your children, my sons, and what we can do through them.
Well, and since the pioneers of this game obviously are older, 60 years ago it started, I can tell you even at my level, Champions Pro, we all do care about giving back and the long-term sustenance of our league. And I know I've talked to the director of autism up in upstate New York, and she is somebody that has started to teach a little pickleball to some autistic children. And they have like in a barn, kind of a makeshift court. And we've talked about maybe flying kids to our Champions level event to have these kids enjoy the Champions level pros the night before our event begins, and just show them the time of their lives on the court. So that's very much an added benefit, is people that can't typically do the more rigorous, difficult sports, especially those with a disability, whether it's learning or psychological or physical. Obviously, there's wheelchair pickleball, and it's really fun for me to see Jody Davis, who's a local legend in wheelchair pickleball here in town. She plays out of the retreat. So much fun to see how they motor around and play pickleball. It's really phenomenal. So, the desire to give back and have people enjoy the game we love, it's there on so many fronts.
Well, you bring up a good point too. Like all these people who are now coming into the sport, there's just going to be this giant need for coaches. I keep pushing you. I know you're super busy, but I think Rick needs to put together a curricula, for how to be a coach and certify those people. I know the USAP has a program like that. I know a lot of people don't get too involved in that. I just think there's all kinds of opportunity to build a network of coaches and a network of school teams and start making this a legitimate school sport.
Well, and I do know, having a daughter that plays softball, that one of the challenges is that as more and more people do it and think they can coach, the difference between a mediocre or a bad coach and a good coach on the development of a kid is huge. And I had a daughter who had a couple of years of people that had really nice facilities and said they were coaches, but really didn't understand. And in the game of softball, there's a difference between being a baseball player and being a softball player. And it's a gulf that's very wide. Probably similar in tennis and pickleball. They have some overlapping skills, but they're not the same game. So getting good coaching is huge. And that's going to be things as the game becomes more down in the youth area. I think people are going to need to have that.
Yeah, I'm not trying to be judgmental, but you're right. There are some good coaches and there's some not good coaches. And I absolutely see on YouTube some videos where my jaw is dropped. Like, did you just say that? Did you really just recommend the 9 o'clock ready position, which means you're bracing for backhands, but then you're totally screwed on the forehand side? That's a bad habit to start with, to not be at 10 or 11 or 12. But there is a desperate need for higher level pickleball coaches. And one thing that in running my Ripsken camps that I've been doing is just kind of talking to the campers about, have they taken other pickleball camps? And most of them have, and they seem to be very fond of our methodology. The good news is I've been coaching for 35 years, tennis, and then 14 years now pickleball. And I would just say this to anybody that's listening: make sure that you go to a camp that has a knowledgeable older coach associated with it. Not trying to say anything badly about young coaches, but managing groups, managing some of those 1 in 40 personalities that could really disrupt the dynamic of a group. It takes talent and it takes time to know as a coach how to navigate those issues. So we've had good reviews with the Ripsken camps, and we're going to continue to do Ripsken camps because we get asked almost daily to come to a new city. So,
and when you say older, realize pickleball, you're old when you're 22 now. I think. I mean, you look at Tyson McGuffin. I hear he's a great coach too. I don't know him, haven't met him before, but is he in his 20s, early 30s? So
30s, yeah.
It's just important. I think you develop this, I want to say, secret knowledge when you get really good at something like a profession. There's a difference. Like For instance, when someone said to me, how do you do this? I'm going, I hold the paddle and I hit the ball over the net. And then then I hear you explain how you change your grip pressure and you move your foot and you twist your hip. And I'm like, I just swing at the ball. I like the level of intricate detail that you have when you describe how to hit a ball. I still can't keep up with it. So it's good to have somebody who really understands the secrets so that you learn good habits. I shouldn't say secrets, but really in many ways they are things that you just learn by doing over time, or they get passed on from the great masters before you, right? Like it's important to have the right coach.
Well, you brought up Tyson, and Tyson's a good friend of mine. I like him a lot. He's a really smart businessman, and he's at a point where he doesn't even have to show up to his camps, and they go fairly well because he's hired good people, like a Champions level player, Mark Milner, who's a good friend of mine. Mark just did a camp of Tyson's out in Arizona last week. So, and I kind of agree that maybe one of my functions should be to put together a course for certification for coaches, because I do think I have that capability of getting coaches to a higher level of skill set sooner. I don't want to take away from the PPR, which is Dan Santorum's the CEO. He's a good friend of mine. So they have a training curriculum, great. And I think IPTPA has a training curriculum. So I'm not trying to say anything negative about that, but I do agree there is room for a higher level certification, which I know I could put that together.
Well, you know what I would love to see, and I almost jokingly say it's like a black belt in martial arts, right? Like right now, if you go out to an average court where people are playing, Dave, and you said, what's your rating? Well, first of all, there are two different rating systems at least. And somebody's going to say, well, I'm a 4.0. And then you play them, and it doesn't go so well for them. And I'm thinking, I'm a 2.5, 3.0. So what are they really? So the rating system, number one, is very hard to navigate. And then these people go to Duper or other, not to put Duper on the spot, but they'll go and they'll play. And someone says, well, I'm a 4.0. But in reality, they're a 2.5. So you beat them 11-0. And I don't understand the algorithm, but it can actually bring your ranking down, beating someone at the level where you are. So that's got to be figured out in the sport. And then, so where I was going with the black belt thing is it's almost like a certification of skill. In martial arts, you say, I can do this punch, I can do this punch, I can do this kata. Okay, you get tested and you're a yellow belt now, right? So there needs to be something like that, in my opinion, in pickleball, that it doesn't age with you in a way. In other words, once you've earned it, you've always got it until you can master that skill. And I think part of that's part of a coaching program too. Don't know what it looks like. I've talked about it with several people, but
I think you get that. I think the other thing though too, especially as the younger kids are coming into it, is starting the right habits. I just know that from my experience with my daughter and playing is, just because you played the game at some point in your life doesn't make you an expert in it. And the difference between teaching somebody like you were talking about, I obviously love YouTube and love all the different places that are out there, and TikTok that, we make a living working in those areas, but there is no certification to put a video up on YouTube. And there's a lot of stuff out there that you look at and go, okay, maybe that works for you, but I'm not sure that solution is the right one for everybody.
There's no doubt. And we see that at camp all the time. They took from a coach for a private lesson, or they went to another camp and they're telling us like a skill that was told to them, yet they're 60, had hip replacement, had a bad knee. Like there's no way that follows suit with what their physical capability is now. And one thing I like to do is have some of my older students really experiment like I do when I play with the non-dominant hand. I like to use the left hand as well as the right hand. And when there's some physical limitations on mobility, then the use of both those hands would be great. Whereas I saw on a forum, which are always interesting chats of stupidity and somewhat intelligent, and I feel like really dumb even reading the whole strings and threads. But you see some people, oh, why would anybody use both hands? They don't even do well enough on one hand. Like if you can't get there, or you can just open your stance, take a lunge step, and be balanced. That's way better than doing a step across, doing a backhand. Now you're fully vacating so much real estate where your opponents have an open gap to shoot. It's a no-brainer. Yeah. So I think it's really important that coaches do identify with skill sets of students and then adjust their and tailor make their adjustments and skills and thought processes for things students implement. I tell my students in camps all the time, please take notes. And the things that connect with you, we always have lunch in between the morning session. I mean, go take notes and let's hammer that home. If you have any questions on it, then keep asking, because I want you to have at least a few things you work on consistently. Filling their head with 25 things, it's just a scrambled mess. So a couple things is good.
Well, let's wrap up here. This has been a good conversation.
Yeah, definitely. Before we go, have you heard about the Pickle Lodge that's going in Cincinnati? We talked with a fellow over there, Mitch Dunn, and they're going to have the second largest indoor facility. I think they're going to have 17 indoor courts.
Wow.
So that's like 2 hours away. It's pretty exciting. We're going to go over there and play for sure. You'll have to come and play.
I like that.
He seemed like a really nice guy. We talked with them the other day, and they were painting floors the other day. Just pretty exciting to see these facilities starting to go in.
Yeah,
it's very cool.
Does that mean that we can stay the night and?
I'm sure he'd host us. He seemed like a super nice guy.
It's a lodge, so I didn't know if it was connected to.
Oh, the Pickle Lodge. Oh, I see what you're saying. No, I got the feeling it's more. He said, I think I heard it was formerly a tennis facility, but it has a lot of garage-style doors on it too. So if you told me it had been like a grease monkey, change your oil in 10 minutes place, I wouldn't be shocked either. But it looks really nice in there now, and like I said, they were painting floors and. So, has anybody created a pickleball resort? I mean, that's a cool idea, right? But no, I don't think you can stay at the Pickle Lodge.
I do know that the pickleball cruises have been very challenging for players to play pickleball on the cruise, because obviously they're outdoors and the ball goes whoosh. And I've heard even there's adjusted lines where it's not a full court and whatnot. I like the concept, being on a cruise playing pickleball, but I don't think
It's in the water, it's out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely. All right. Well, yeah, we should wrap up.
But before, as we wrap up, let's say again those dates for the MPL.
Oh, yeah.
So the NPL starts in June. The Combine is in March 25th and 27th at the Oklahoma City Combine. In June, I believe it's 6-7, and that kicks off in Grapevine, Texas. And they have 8 indoor courts and I think 6 to 7 outdoor courts.
Is that near San Antonio, Grapevine?
No, it's Dallas.
Dallas, okay.
Dallas has another location, Grand Prairie, that we're also going to be going to for the chicken and pickle. We're also going to San Antonio, and we're going to Wichita and Kansas City. And we end up in what they just opened in the last month, Glendale, Arizona is their awesome facility. And so we're going to have our league championship tournament in October in Glendale, Arizona.
Good deal. All right.
Good.
Any
That's
last
exciting.
words, Rick?
I just, if you haven't heard the story about Ripsken, I always rest in peace for Todd Whitskin, who passed away. The Eagle also followed us around on his last trip. SKEN, my last name. So people think Ripsken is just like the way it sounds. I hit the ball, but it's way deeper than that. So shout out to my brother who's looking down. Would have been an amazing pickleball player. And it's pretty cool to see Benjamin and Todd Shelton killed on the pro tennis tour. And hopefully Todd's pretty proud of what I'm doing on the pickleball tour.
Killed it on the pro tennis tour, right? Okay.
Ben still is. He's actually in Acapulco right now.
Oh, wow.
He just flew over there to play in another pro tournament. So he's only 20 years old and he's 40 in the world. And
Crushing it.
he's crushing it. Yeah.
That's good. That's awesome. All right. Well, thanks a lot, everybody.
No problem.
Good seeing you. See you next time.
Yeah, we'll see y'all.